Among the 7 wise men of ancient Greece was a man called Periander. In historiography, Periander is a very controversial figure, mostly because the sources often contradict each other regarding Periander's character and rule. So much so that it seems like they are talking about 2 entirely different people. Periander, born in 650 BC, was the son of Cypselus, the first tyrant of Corinth who established the Cypselid dynasty. When his father died, Periander succeeded him as the tyrant of the city and then married Lycide, the daughter of Proclus, the tyrant of Epidaurus. Together they had 3 children, 2 sons, Cypselus and Lycophron, and a daughter whose name is not mentioned. According to Diogenes, the firstborn Cypselus was incompetent, while the second son, Lycophron, was very wise. During his rule, Periander befriended Thrasybulus, the tyrant of Miletus, and Aliatis, the king of Lydia. And this is where the waters get muddy. On the one hand, the majority of the sources depict Periander as a brutal tyrant who abused his power and did whatever he could to remain in charge of the state. But on the other hand, there are sources in which he is depicted as an extremely competent ruler who made the city-state of Corinth prosper and paved the way for many technological and artistic developments. The primary source in which Periander is depicted in a negative light is the work of Herodotus. According to him, Periander, after hearing false rumors about his wife's unfaithfulness, he killed her in a fit of rage, only to deeply regret his action afterwards. When hearing about his beloved mother's death, Lycophron was furious with his father. Periander banished his son from Corinth and exiled him to the island of Corcyra, which was a Corinthian colony at that time. Later on, Herodotus even incorporates supernatural elements into the story. He claims that one day, when Periander was searching for a hidden treasure in the city, he sent messengers to the oracle of the dead in Epirus in order to learn about the treasure's location. According to the messengers, when they reached the oracle, the ghost of Periander's wife appeared before them and told them that she knew the location of the treasure, but she would not reveal it. She told them that Periander, after burying her, neglected to burn her clothes, as was the custom, and now, without them, she was feeling cold in the underworld. In order to satisfy his wife's ghost, Periander thought of a malicious plan. He invited all the women of Corinth to the temple of Hera. Thinking this would be a special occasion, the women went, dressed in their finest garments. When all of them entered the temple, they were ambushed by soldiers who stripped them naked and then burned their clothes. Now content, Periander's wife revealed to the messengers the location of the treasure. The Greek historian Ephorus gives a different account, less supernatural but still cruel, in which the women inside the temple were not stripped naked but were robbed of all their jewelry because Periander wanted to make a golden statue as an offering to the gods. According to Herodotus, in his old age, Periander chose to reconcile with his son Lycophron because he regarded him as the most capable among his sons and wished for him to succeed him. His son agreed to return to Corinth, but only if his father was to go to Corcyra in his place and stay there in exile. When the Corcyrans heard about this, they ambushed and killed Lycophron in order to keep Periander away from the island. Periander was so enraged about the death of his son that he allegedly captured 300 young men from Corcyra and sent them to the king of Lydia in order to castrate them, wanting to inflict upon them the pain of losing their family line. However, during the journey to Lydia, when the ship arrived at the island of Samos, the young men sought refuge within a temple. Fortunately, the Samians came to their rescue, sparing them from their intended fate. This is the story of Periander as it was written by Herodotus. Besides Herodotus, there were other historians as well who portrayed Periander in a negative light. The writer Aristippus even claims that Periander had an incestuous relationship with his own mother. It is suggested that his cruelty towards others stemmed from his discomfort after the relationship was discovered. But as we mentioned, there were also scholars who portrayed Periander as a wise and very competent ruler. Among those were Plutarch and Aristotle. In fact, Plutarch, in his work The Malice of Herodotus, accuses Herodotus of being extremely biased, claiming that most of what he writes about Periander is clearly a myth. According to the more positive writers, Periander was responsible for transforming Corinth, making it one of the strongest city-states in Greece. They say that he continued the work of his father and established new colonies in Macedonia and Epirus, while also bringing order to the old Corinthian colony on the island of Corcyra. Moreover, it is said that during his rule, Corinth's first coinage was issued and the city's economy flourished. He established trade deals with South Italy, the Lydians, and Egypt, and he provided many new employment opportunities. It is mentioned that he wanted to build a canal on the Corinthian isthmus so that the merchant and navy ships could cross from Corinthian waters to the Saronic Gulf. When he realized that this was not possible due to the limited technology of the time, he thought of another plan. He issued the construction of the Diolkos, a limestone trackway built to transport boats across the isthmus of Corinth. The trackway was around 6 meters wide and 7 kilometers long. The ships would be placed on a wheeled platform and would be transferred across from one port to the other. The Diolkos was a very ambitious project for its time, as well as a tremendous technological feat. The Corinthians successfully substituted a journey of 700 kilometers through a treacherous sea with a mere 6-kilometer journey on land. This is without a doubt the greatest achievement that is attributed to Periander. Aside from the economic and technological advancements, these sources also tell us that Periander was a poet and a great patron of the arts. It is said that he often invited poets to the city, and under his rule, Corinthian vase production and art flourished. Having heard both the negative and the positive narratives on Periander's rule, one can only wonder which one of them is true. What should be noted is that the first source on Periander dates 150 years after his death, and the latest source dates 6 centuries later. If ancient Greek historians painted a quite similar picture of Periander, then the age gap would not have been much of an issue. However, that is not the case here. Even the accounts of his death vary. One source claims that he died of sorrow, while another claims that he ordered his men to kill him. However, it is fairly agreed upon that he died around 585 BC, having ruled Corinth for over 40 years. Upon his gravestone was the following inscription: "The sea-beat land of Corinth in her bosom doth here embrace her ruler Periander, great for his wealth and wisdom." There is speculation that the image of Periander as a depraved tyrant who was so cruel that he even killed his own wife was created by the aristocratic families of Corinth, who regained control of the city 2 years after Periander's death. It is reasonable to assume that they had a motive to distort his image, both because during his rule, Periander suppressed their power and influence, and in order for the aristocrats to prevent future tyrant uprisings. It should be noted that tyranny did not have the same connotation it has today. In ancient Greece, a tyrant would often take power from the aristocrats by force. However, most of the time, he did so with the support of the people, and usually ruled for the many, not for the few. No matter the information we have on Periander's character, it is historically true that Corinth was a thriving city during the 6th century BC. Though whether this was due to his rule or in spite of it is very difficult to answer. It could very well be that the truth actually lies in between, like in many instances in historiography where there are two opposing points of view. But if Periander was such a controversial figure in later times, how come he was considered one of the 7 sages of ancient Greece? Well, strangely enough, there were many scholars, among them Plato and Heraclides, who claimed that there were actually 2 Perianders. The first was the Tyrant of Corinth, and the other one was a man from Ambracia, a city in the region of Epirus. They say that Periander from Ambracia was actually the wise man, and Periander of Corinth was included in the 7 sages instead of him because of a misunderstanding. Unfortunately, we know next to nothing about the Ambracian Periander. However, the claims of these scholars should not be easily dismissed. Some of the quotes that are attributed to Periander of Corinth, like "democracy is better than tyranny," do not really make sense to have come from him. At the end of the day, for the common people of ancient Greece, it did not really matter. They just knew that a man called Periander was among the 7 sages, and they admired him for the quotes that were attributed to him, without knowing anything about his character or the contradicting sources about his rule.